Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Propagandacast with me, your host, ImperialDane. And today we have for you a 1 vs 1 on Langres. Yes, indeed, it is another match on Langres, that sort of funny little farm map there, divided right through the middle with a few roads. This one in particular being a sort of small roundabout. We do have a few farm buildings here and there, each protecting a munitions point, but this one being the more valuable, also being the slightly more defensible. Yeah, at the same time there's a sort of nice blind spot on this building here where you can in fact sneak in, do some nasty bits, and lob off some grenades over these hedges, this bocage. Whereas this building can protect a bit more, the barn can protect in fact this medium fuel point and this point, but then again I do believe this building provides a bit of a blind spot again for this build, for this angle. Plus of course there's this spot. Although we usually find that the hotspot of the map is again here, you usually find the hotspot of the map is usually in fact the shortest route between the two bases, so that's not highly surprising in that sense. Although in some cases some players are pretty good at subverting this and in fact using it rather nastily against you. So keep that in mind. And who shall be fighting? Well, right here in the north we are seeing Sexico, yes indeed, quite confident in his skills with the ladies, apparently Captain Sexico of the 26th Infantry Division. And who shall be fighting him? None other than the Bane of the Allied Forces, ImperialDane of the 17th SS Panzergrenadiers Division, Götz von Berlichingen. I'm always unsure if I'm pronouncing that last bit correctly, named after a German mercenary commander who was known for having a sort of prosthetic gauntlet which could grab around a sword, which around the time of the medieval age was apparently very advanced. Nonetheless, a bit of a short match, but I thought it had some interesting points and some fun bits, so I thought I'd show this to you. Has some rather interesting play on behalf of the Americans, and has some hopefully fun bits as well from my side, and perhaps something to learn from. Barracks going up, nothing unusual there, same bit also seeing Wehrmacht quarters up, so nothing highly unusual there. It's sort of the same start. Level 12 here, sort of been stuck in around the top 200 for a bit, desperately trying to get upwards. Well, not desperately, but doing my best. Sexico I believe was around rank 11, so that's all nice there, nothing highly unusual. Barracks up, riflemen on the way most likely, engineers edging out to all sides, fanning out, but apparently these engineers have something else in mind. What could this be? They're ignoring this fuel point, the munitions point, apparently this strategic point. What could they be going for? Pioneers taking a slightly more slow, cautious, methodical approach. That's sort of more how I prefer things. I don't rush out and try to seize everything. And in fact he's doing the same here, ignoring the nearby points and going straight for this fuel point. Riflemen on the field, they're probably going for this strategic point, which of course will connect the fuel point with the base. So of course that means a lot more fuel for him, and apparently these engineers in the west are going for this fuel point as well, although he's probably going to have a bit of difficulty connecting that right away. At the same time, if I do fall upon it, it's going to provide a bit more difficulty in me getting it, since of course it's going to be taking a bit of time to take that, in which time of course he can react and launch an assault. Laying down some barbed wire here to sort of prevent the enemy from taking off this point. Not a bad idea. And riflemen moving in to spoil everything. Panzergrenadiers under fire, quickly running around the barbed wire up behind the haystack. Of course the barbed wire fortification has not been finished, and of course the riflemen can move in here. Riflemen taking quite a bit of fire, riflemen being alright up close, and certainly pioneers though taking up positions here. And what does our good opponent do? He focuses down the pioneers, and I'll just briefly pause. This is a sort of early engagement tactics which you can use, of course. Getting pioneers in, for example, to help, in particular when the riflemen are up close, can be quite a bit of thing that can push things in your favor. So of course focusing down the pioneers is good, and at the same time he's at the exactly same thought in his mind, moving in the engineers to sort of push his early engagement in his favor. So keep such things in mind. You can use such matters to really give you the small edge, and of course you can also use it against him. Of course I do the exact same thing and immediately begin focusing his engineers, giving them quite a nasty surprise. A face full of carabiner 89 kurz. And further Volksgrenadiers moving in. This is of course closer to my lines, but at the same time we're seeing riflemen moving in. Volksgrenadiers having taken quite a bit of fire. Further riflemen marching in. So far the Volksgrenadiers are certainly outnumbered, but they are slowly turning things in their favor. Volksgrenadiers moving in, and of course flanking this heavy cover, and of course heavy cover is directional. So these Volksgrenadiers here behind the hedge wall in light cover, they do have the drop on these troops in heavy cover, and there we go, one rifleman team immediately forced to retreat. Volksgrenadiers continuing the fight against these chaps, and now they are somehow slipping about the heavy cover. This is certainly not going to good. Volksgrenadier team number 1 though, taking quite a bit of fire. Pioneers do a bit of harassment, and note that they're going here instead of this. Why? That's because I do have a tendency of sort of queuing up my movements, sort of holding down shift and then going through things. But there's one thing you should note: if an opponent is taking the same point or is in the process of taking that point, your pioneers will immediately skip that point over and move on to the next in the order. So of course you can sort of occasionally note things like that. If your pioneers are doing something they shouldn't be doing at that time, you can probably extrapolate that, oh right, someone must be already there, and of course react to it promptly. At the same time we are seeing a village jeep on the way, 30 caliber air-cooled mounted. We'll of course have to see how that does. Riflemen though standing quite nice, though still on the wrong side of the haystack. Volksgrenadiers slowly pulling back. The engagement here did not fully go in the way of the Wehrmacht's favor. Wehrmacht of course being the sort of overall covering name for the German armed forces. MG42 setting up, but Jeep of course probably spotting this, gets out of there, and the riflemen get up here behind the bocage, so the MG42 can't really hit them so easily, and of course I'm forced to move in the MG42, which of course gives him time to maneuver in the Jeep, perhaps do a bit of flanking, of course. Doing so in the light cover, grants some protection. Of course he's awfully close to also the Volksgrenadiers and the MP40 equipped gunners as well. Small advantage there. Rifleman moving through here, not entirely sure why, perhaps hoping to stop any attempts at grabbing the fuel. Currently he is holding most of the map, in fact having been able to apply quite a nice amount of pressure on me. Engineers standing about, perhaps getting flamethrowers, could be laying down mines, though that's probably not the case. Could actually be of great help. Volksgrenadier team moving in here, getting the drop on these riflemen. Are certainly now low on men. Small engagement here, and riflemen will be forced to pull back. Volksgrenadiers moving forwards here, scouting a bit ahead, making sure things are clear for the MG42. That's rather the approach I favor. I don't move in the MG42 ahead without support, without knowing what's in there, because one wrong move and you might suddenly end up having given your opponent an MG42, and that's sort of the last thing you want to do. Engineers setting up positions here, preventing me from taking it, of course. So that's a bit of a nuisance. Jeep doing a bit of harassment here and preventing my pioneers from taking it. Quite some aggressive maneuvers from the American commander. Very good indeed. Volksgrenadiers forced to retreat, but a third team of Volksgrenadiers has arrived, moving in to replace the ones forced to retreat. Jeep moving in from the rear. Mines being laid down, and he stops right at it, and then probably not because he's using some sort of cheat, as some people like to imagine, but it's probably because he saw my pioneers standing out in the middle of the road. And if you're seeing pioneers standing suspiciously out in the middle of the road, or engineers for that matter, they've probably been laying down mines. So of course he was clever enough to spot that. MG42 standing up there, swiveling about with its tripod mount. Volksgrenadiers setting up positions here, able to get on a bright and nice broadside on this spot. And moving in the Volksgrenadiers from the south to put on some pressure there. Riflemen looking a bit under the weather, pulling back for reinforcements, and looks like they might be edging about for another assault. 4 riflemen teams so far, and a Jeep. What shall be coming next? Something's on the way from the barracks. No medic station though, no supply yard or weapon support center. Either of those could be of help, but then again, he might be getting something of usage out of that barracks. In fact, let's go have a brief look. He's getting pineapple grenades. That's again something rather interesting you can note from American commanders. Something they're of course going to use more now that the grenade has been made more useful. Volksgrenadiers coming under fire, and what is this? This is a rather interesting maneuver. He's completely ignoring my forces, and what is he doing instead? He's ignoring my strong point, and he's going for where I'm not. This is a brilliant move. This is in fact a highly clever move. It's taking all of my territory right here in the west. And of course, he's going to force me to react or do something else. And if I'm forced to react and move in, I'm probably going to move into a slightly more unfavorable position, where he can strike from some slightly better positions. Since of course Grenadiers aren't really the best assault troops without assault, of course. Keep moving in, and engineers the same. No flamethrowers though. Supply yard on the way. And what's going on here? Engineers taking quite a bit of fire, trying to charge in. The Volksgrenadiers rendering this point neutral, cutting me off from these fuel points. In fact, ensuring he has very little fuel left. And what shall be happening now? Panzer fast at the jeep, and the crew being flung slightly into orbit and then landing and securing this strategic point. And of course, this is sort of the flaw at this sort of strategy. Yes, he could in fact take all of this, and in fact he's currently doing, but at the same time he left this spot vulnerable and open. And I'm of course striking here at this. He didn't have any mines which could have helped, nor barbed wire. He didn't really have anything. He wasn't really prepared. Because usually it's the Americans that do these sort of things, not the Wehrmacht. And of course sometimes a clever thing to do is do this thing you might usually not do as the Wehrmacht commander and catch your opponent off guard. Then again, some things you shouldn't be doing, like running straight into a machine gun fire. Nonetheless, assaulting here, riflemen not wanting to get into the building. Why? Flamethrowers are nearby. Engineers charging in once more. Still no flamethrowers though for them. MG42 setting up. But it is getting hit from all sides. A nice flanking maneuver from these riflemen, catching all of my forces here in a slight vice. And a half-track and a pack as well. Of course, I've not seen grenades. I've not seen bars. So of course, and we'll just briefly pause, I can of course sort of expect, well, he's probably going to be going for armored cars. In that case, I want a bloody pack. But then at the same time, I'm not really seeing it, so I'm going for something else, perhaps a half-track to sort of provide some mobile defenses, and of course allow me to reinforce my troops on the field. And we are here seeing a rather huge engagement going off. Volksgrenadiers coming under quite a bit of fire, riflemen, engineers right in the middle of everything. And what shall happen? An assault grenades being thrown by the Volksgrenadiers right into the midst of everything. Flamethrowers charging in, riflemen, engineers getting stunned. My goodness, these pioneers though might want to get out of there. Riflemen taking quite a bit of fire. One team of riflemen might in fact be lost. And he has 5 teams of riflemen right in the middle of everything. And the half-track charges in, machine guns blazing. Engineers and riflemen getting torn apart. Another rifleman team might have to retreat right through the gauntlet of the Volksgrenadiers with their rifles. And looks like, oh dear, rifleman team is lost. He's rather opting heavily for the rifleman. And so far, not a single pineapple grenade or any other usage of munitions actually, which is a bit unfortunate. If you're not using grenades, might as well lay down a few mines again to sort of protect the vulnerable strategic points, or generally make things a lot more of a pain in the ass for me to advance forward. But currently he's not really doing that, and that's sort of his minor problem. He's really good at leveraging his riflemen, attacking from all sides, putting the pressure up on all sides, but he's not really good at the other bit, which is sort of ensuring that I'm going to have a hard time taking any territory in some manner, and of course doing heavy enough casualties. Volksgrenadiers nicely reinforcing from this half-track and setting up the Kampfkraft center. Further Volksgrenadiers heading towards the west. Supply yard is up. Took a bit of time though. And now he's getting a medic station, which was also about time actually. Medic station always a good thing if you're using a lot of riflemen, although I think it would have been better a lot early on doing that heavy assault. And grenadiers coming under fire. The first grenadier team of the 17th SS taking up position behind this wooden cart. No horses nearby though. Pulling slightly further back, and of course what do I do here? I pull the half-track in and about using it of course as a sort of mobile reserve vehicle. Of course there's just one tiny flaw in my plan. I've sort of gotten to get the pioneers in it since I sort of dropped them out to lay down some mines, which of course nice. What isn't so nice is of course forgetting to ensure that the half-track is crewed.
Observation posts report we are losing a sector.
Of course, if the American commander has some sticky bombs, that's going to end up very nastily. Volksgrenadiers moving in here. Nice positions on these riflemen, and the rifleman dropping a pineapple grenade. Oh dear, what shall happen? And there we go, 5 Volksgrenadiers blown to bits. First grenades engaging these riflemen at the south, and now I am getting the full taste of the pineapple grenades retreating here. And of course, completely forgetting again, this half-track is not crewed. So now it's just presenting a sort of target, and of course at this point I sort of realize my mistake. And of course also realizing this is in fact a lot more vulnerable than I'd imagined. And quickly pull back the MG42, which I had imagined to be sort of holding the eastern flank. This bocage being a bit of a trouble for me, and of course I have to sort of move about for it to hold the west or the east. And once more the half-track moves back, ready to meet up with the pioneers so they can recrew it. You good tip always for half-tracks, Allied and Wehrmacht that is, crew them with your engineers or pioneers. Kampfkraft Center already up a few upgrades for pioneers, support veterancy and infantry veterancy. Partly because, well, machine gunners at veterancy 1, they do not get first aid healing as sort of all the other things do, which is sort of slight healing bonus. What they gain is an accuracy bonus and a reload bonus, making them 25% more accurate, which is generally always nice. Half-track doing a bit of nice job there, both pulling back, Panzergrenadiers in support. Large force of engineers and riflemen in the west. Flamethrowers and everything nice. But I don't think he actually has anything to deal with that half-track properly. Grenadiers engaging these riflemen. Grenades thrown. Oh dear, looks like he was sort of expecting me to move there. Both grenades missed. Riflemen hitting a mine. And half-track to the south, putting a very, very brutal stop to all of these Panzergrenadiers. Grenade landing right in the midst of them. Killing only one though. Mine hit though, which does more damage. In fact, pinning down a lot of Panzergrenadiers. And a Panzergrenadier team is lost to the fire. Grenades being thrown at the Grenadiers, forcing them back. Half-track holding the line though. Veterancy 1 now up. Veterancy 1, bit like the armor veterancy, decreasing damage taken by 25%, which is going to be a bit of helpful in case of sticky bombs or anything else. But I'm rather afraid the American commander seems to be only using riflemen. He's using them quite well, but sticky bombs or some BARs could really be of help here, or perhaps getting a weapons motor pool or a weapon support center. Riflemen catching on fire as pioneers moving in with flamethrowers, and I do believe we are at the midway. So let's go for a mid-game analysis, and of course a short game, and I do apologize, but again I thought I had some interesting bits. And I'd also like to note I have some rather more interesting games for the next week. I've gotten a lot of good games, in fact, a lot of different games, so you should be a bit excited there. Also, of course, I hope you find this game exciting as well. We should of course be returning to me, but of course, what is the situation? Well, currently I've managed to turn things around. The rather large horde of riflemen hasn't really been leveraged properly. I feel he was able to do quite a bit of work there, quite nicely, but he's not able to defend what he's holding. He doesn't lay down mines, which is rather what I fear he could have been doing a lot better. He does have a medic station, he does have veterancy 1 for supplying out, but he doesn't have sticky bombs or BARs. He doesn't have anything to support his riflemen in any greater measure, and I really think that's going to end up biting him in the arse. For me, of course, I have a medic bunker on the way myself. I have the pack in case any sort of vehicular or armored bits appear. And the half-track is doing quite a nice bit, stopping up any larger flanking attacks, which is rather one of the things I like about the half-track. It's quite good in protecting your infantry, partly by reinforcing them, but also partly by offering machine gun fire, which can rather stop if any American encircling attempts at least a bit. So huzzah for the half-track. 6 killed so far. So let us return to things. Blitzkrieg, of course, due to the assault grenades, but that's really the only thing I have. American medics marching out onto the field. Not entirely sure I am aware of this at the moment. Riflemen coming under fire. And looks like they're continuing right into the open. I do feel this is a bit of a misstep. Grenades being dropped, blowing away the haystack, but that is the only thing they manage. The half-track and flamethrowers take care of the rest. Triage center now on the way, but still nothing heavier for the riflemen. Nothing heavier at all, and this half-track is really proving to be quite the nuisance for him, having taken some light damage from the rifles, but still, now with veterancy 2 it gains a health bonus, plus it does 20% more damage, which of course is helpful in the machine gun, but at the same time, if I were to say upgrade to the flamethrower half-track, that's going to be a lot more flamethrower I'm getting for my 75 munitions. And we are seeing a large American assault once more, going for this strategic cutoff point and going for this victory point as well. Riflemen charging ahead. No mercy for the Krauts.
We are losing ground.
In the meanwhile, I have the MG42 set up here in a nice protective position, covering my Grenadiers as they take territory, getting Panzer checks, constantly expecting some sort of vehicle, yet I'm never really seeing it. And assault being used here. Why am I using assault? Let's just briefly pause again, and yes, sorry for all the pauses, but again, lots of riflemen, and this grants me 2 advantages against with the assault, because while assault can easily be stopped with retreating, trouble is, if all your troops are clumped up, you can't really determine which one it is I'm throwing the assault at. So usually he will either have to retreat them all, which of course will waste the 50 munitions, but I will send him away, basically using only 50 munitions. If he gets the right one, well, that's great. If he doesn't, well, I'm going to be lobbing a lot of assault grenades, doing quite a lot of damage. So let's see what happens. Of course, he is pulling back, but already people are getting stunned. The half-track moves in, machine gun blazing, stopping assaults from the south. The engineers moving in, but the rear gun does get the drop on those engineers, quickly suppressing them, allowing my Volksgrenadiers to get out of there slightly unharmed. And pulling back there. Pioneers ready to repair. The half-track does still take damage from rifle fire, but it's not going to be so much. And now these engineers are getting absolutely torn apart out in the open. Riflemen continuing their assault in the west, but now focusing instead on taking territory and moving awfully close to this mine, but they do barely avoid it. Still no sticky bombs seen though, nor any BARs. American medics continuing to pull back the wounded. Only one needed to reconstitute a fresh rifleman team. At the same time, German medics are halfway through, ready to almost constitute a grenadier team. Pioneers moving in with flamethrowers. And the half-track continues being lethal, opening up. Guns blazing in these riflemen. The wooden fence not being much help there. Pioneers scorching. MG42 moving in here, hoping to sort of get a nice position there, and there we go, catching the rifleman out in the open. Grenade being dropped at the MG42, killing one gunner, and the half-tank continuing to blaze away as well. Rangers and stormtroopers hitting the field at more or less the same time. Elite of the 17th SS getting some assault rifles as well, and the bazookas open up, grenades thrown at the Volksgrenadiers. These Rangers are certainly quite a nasty surprise. I of course seen absolutely nothing to doctrinal choice at this stage, so when the Rangers do arrive, I'm of course a bit caught off guard. The half-track taking quite a bit of damage, but at the same time the veterancy upgrades do grant it a bit of protection against the bazookas, and now the stormtroopers are close with the assault rifles, ready to tear through these Rangers, though at the same time we are seeing again nice flanking maneuver around the rear. And riflemen and engineers, assault being used, half-track maneuvering about, but the Rangers are not done, moving in with the bazookas. Grenades being dropped right into midst of the Volksgrenadiers, and stormtroopers doing no damage barely. Anti-tank gun though might be cleared out, and yes, it uses vehicle veterancy. And assault grenades being dropped on the riflemen, doing quite a bit of damage. The half-track looks like it might tear through the rest, but one more shot at that half-track and it might go up in flames, but 14 kills. Rather nice job, in fact. My forces are constantly being surrounded and almost cut off, but the half-track again and again does the trick. An absolutely nice vehicle. Middler shoots from Panzergrenadiers, and looks like a grenadier team might be reconstituted soon. This half-track has taken an absolutely brutal beating, but it has done quite a lot for the Wehrmacht. Stormtroopers also holding out, doing quite a bit of damage with their assault rifles. Riflemen moving about in the open, really not the blaze you want to be. Grenades though being dropped right into the midst of the stormtroopers. One down. Grenadiers though holding out, and medics quickly moving in to pick out that wounded stormtrooper, and apparently an engineer is also lying amongst the grain. Quite a bit of infantry action, quite heavy in fact. And victory points switching sides. So that's not going to do much in the greater scheme of pictures. Sturm Armory now on the way. I'm in fact quite under a lot of pressure at this moment. He's constantly attacking on all sides, which of course forcing me to switch my attention, and of course also increases the efficiency of his grenades, since of course If I'm briefly unaware of that's going on, I can easily lose a lot of men to a single pineapple grenade. So really aggressive with his rifleman. But the half-track does grant me the advantage. In this case, of course, it can be used to sort of stop attacks from numerous sides. And for that, I do love the half-track. Rifleman charging in with ranger support from the north. No submachine guns though up. That could be of great help. And assault being used. Grenades once more flying once more. The Volksgrenadiers show their suddenly unlimited supply of grenades. Of course, where they come from is apparently never answered. Constantly flinging them about, and apparently the Americans just stand out in them, getting their troops stunned. Flamethrowers still moving in. And looks like another rifleman team might be lost. Medics though continuing their job of pulling back the wounded. And looks like this rifleman team is going to be cut down. Oh no, it barely makes it out there. The Rangers though holding the line with the elite armor, but they are taking absolutely horrific losses. Now getting cut down by Grenadiers and Volksgrenadiers from all sides. And the Ranger team is lost. In the meanwhile, riflemen moving in from the south, cut down by the stormtroopers. My goodness, this is certainly quite a bit of action. Now riflemen moving in from the north once more. Assault being used. Grenades being thrown back and forth. Who shall win this engagement? The Volksgrenadiers getting absolutely torn apart with the range. Riflemen also taking quite a bit of damage. And a grenade kills the American medic quite by coincidence. Flamethrower moving in, but getting stopped by that half-track once more. The half-track opening up with its light machine gun and pinning these engineers rather quickly. Of course, American engineers are slightly quicker to suppress with flamethrowers. Keep that in mind. And hitting a mine in the retreat, killing the entire team. The MG-42 moving in. And a well-played from Sexico. The 26th having been defeated by the 17th SS. So there you go. Quite a hard-fought battle. And just in time, the Stuke 4 arrives, ready to do absolutely nothing. That was a bit unfortunate there. Could have been fun with it on the field, but there you go. Rather swift, rather hard-fought battle. Lots of infantry action on both sides. Lots of flanking. Lots of grenades. Lots of good bits there. But of course, what can we learn from this? What is the lesson of today from this? And yes, I do apologize for the short game, but of course, tomorrow I'll have some much longer games. Hopefully also much more interesting. Although again, I hope this was interesting. But what can we learn from this? Well, mines are good. They did quite a bit of good from my side, and of course they were rather absent from his side. Had he been protecting that victory point right here, strategic point I mean, with mines, he might have stood a better chance when he made that flanking maneuver, and of course it was a lot harder for me to actually take that and basically cut him off a lot of his fuel. At the same time, I really felt if he'd gone for something a bit more than just riflemen and engineers, he might have been able to leverage a better advantage against me. He might have been able to knock out my strong point, and he might also have been able to do something against that half-track. And really, I think the star of this game really was the half-track. 18 kills, and really able to put a stop to a lot of assaults by the Americans. Doing quite a bit of damage, suppressing, and basically being a nuisance. Also allowing my troops to stay in the field longer. The Schützen Panzergrenadiers, very, very useful tool in the Wehrmacht arsenal, should not be underestimated. In particular with a bit of infantry, it also becomes rather tough and can take quite a bit more damage than usual. So do not forget that, ladies and gentlemen. And medic station and medic bunkers on both sides, so that was good, that was nice. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this fight. If you did, why not subscribe or tell your friends, and if you didn't, well, why not send in a replay of your own? I get plenty, but I can always accept a lot more. Of course, don't expect necessarily for it to be casted right away. Whatever I get, again, I get a lot of replays, and of course that gives me a lot of choice to show a lot of different games. At least I hope they feel different. So anyhow, cheers.